Um, Welcome all to the second film discussion of New Kannada Cinema. Last week we had the first discussion of Birbal, and now we will have a discussion of KOLI TAAL in Talking Films Online. For those of you who are joining the discussion today, Talking Films Online, as its name goes, is an online film discussion group, which began in June 2020. Since then, we have been meeting every Saturday at 9 p.m. To discuss a pre-decided film. This series of 3 Kannada films that we are watching is somewhat unusual in the sense that these 3 form one unit, and we have named this program New Shoots or Hosa Chiguru in Sandalwood. I'm very happy and glad that all 3 filmmakers responded very positively to TFO's efforts to put together film discussions on these 3 films. And today we have with us Abhilash Shetty, who has made the film, and we are all really eagerly looking forward to all of us sharing our views on the film. Because I think it's been such an interesting film for all of us. Something that we've all responded very positively to. To lead the discussion today, we have Professor Rashmi Sawhney, who is a Bangalore-based film and cultural theorist. She writes on cinema and the visual arts in English and Marathi. She's a co-founder with Lucia Imas King of Vision Mix, www.visionmix.info, an international network of artists, filmmakers, and researchers. She's currently Associate Professor in Cultural Studies at Christ University and has taught at various institutions in India and Europe. A very warm welcome to you, Rashmi. We're eagerly looking forward to all that you have to say about the film. The second panelist for this discussion is Harish Mallya. Welcome back, Harish. Harish is traveling. I hope he will be able to join us off and on in the discussion. Harish is a software professional with immense passion for cinema, which brought him into the core team of Suchitra Film Society. He has been a part of the team that organizes film-related events and programs for the past 8 years, including the popular Bangalore International Short Film Festival, as the film curator for the international section, that is Cinema of the World, and evaluator for Asian section, along with various film appreciation and filmmaking courses. He closely works with film sales agents across India and also makes recommendations to festivals in India. He supports independent filmmakers across India by reviewing their scripts, rough cuts, provides feedback to the theatrical feedback prior to the theatrical release or submission to film festivals. As a film festival consultant, he has also helped several filmmakers with their submissions to various film festivals. He's a critic who writes for News Minute and Facebook. He's a creative executive for films such as Ondu Motteya Kate, and also executive and co-producer of Arishad Varga, which premiered in London Indian Film Festival. Welcome again, Harish, and looking forward to all that you have to say about KOLI TAAL. And Abhilash Shetty, the filmmaker, the maker of the film KOLI TAAL, has also very kindly joined us today. Abhilash is an Indian filmmaker and screenwriter. He made his directorial debut with this Kannada film, KOLI TAAL, which premiered at the 21st New York Indian Film Festival. It was later screened many places and has won numerous accolades at various film festivals in the USA, Australia, Germany, Canada, and South Korea. He began his career by making short films that have garnered critical acclaim and numerous accolades. Abhilash studied at Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Shimoga. He pursued his bachelor's and master's degree in commerce, and he's a self-taught filmmaker who quit his corporate job to pursue his filmmaking dreams. Very happy that you could join us, and very happy that you made a film like KOLI, TAAL, Abhilash. So we're really looking forward to Rashmi leading the discussion. Abhilash, we will come to you probably towards the end, though you're welcome to join the discussion in between. So we'll begin the discussion with Rashmi, followed by Harish, and then all of us can pitch in and share our responses to the film. Once again, welcome all, and over to you, Rashmi.
Okay, thank you, Professor Nikhila and Dr. Geeta Vishwanath for inviting me to talk about KOLI, TAAL. I must actually thank my colleague Abhishek Chatterjee, who roped me into this network, and what a delightful little forum this is, meeting every Saturday night at 9 p.m. And, as somebody who joins occasionally, I just want to say that it takes a lot of work and commitment to actually put together something like this. So, congratulations to both of you for all the work that you're putting into this for the love of cinema. And I must actually start with a little, I have to admit that when I said that I can do the discussion on the 13th, I had actually kind of made a calculation which ended up being a bit of an error, which is that I'm working on a book at the moment, and I had thought that I will finish the introduction and send it off to the editor last week, but that's not happened. And my deadline is tomorrow night. So please forgive me if, because my mind space is slightly in the middle of finishing writing this introduction and then slightly in this conversation. So you will have to pardon my kind of not very well put together argument. I don't have an argument about the film, since it's not meant to be a keynote, it's supposed to be a discussion. And I really hope that we actually can get around to having a discussion, because I think what's very special about these 3 screenings or 3 conversations on the Kannada films that you're doing is that you have the filmmakers with us. We have the filmmakers with us. And I think that's really a wonderful opportunity, because I write on cinema and the visual arts. And one thing that I found very interesting, and I used to teach earlier at the School of Arts and Aesthetics in JNU. And, this was a conversation between the 3 departments there, which was theater and performance and visual studies, which was basically art history, and cinema studies. And we used to keep kind of trying to understand the relationship between the critic or the theorist and the creator in all these 3 arenas, in these 3 kind of modes of creative expression, or one could even add literature to that. And it emerged quite kind of strikingly that in theater and in the visual arts, or in visual studies, there was a particular kind of close-knit relationship between the artist or the performer or the director, dramaturg, whatever, and the theorist critic. And often, people would end up being both. Whereas in the way in which the discipline of cinema studies at least has developed, there is almost a kind of such a large gap between what we call the industry and us as critics, who are not reviewers writing for, let's say, mainstream publications, but academic critics, theorists of cinema. And of course, we know that bifurcation happens. It's a kind of late development in the history of film studies, because earlier the film theorists were the filmmakers. You had the Eisenstein writing about cinema, and you had Chaplin writing, and of course we've had Ghatak and Rai and so on, and others in our context. But the discipline of cinema studies, as it emerged internationally from the 70s onwards, 60s, you still have Bazin and Kahers and all of that happening, which is a hugely collaborative effort between filmmakers and film critics. But from the 70s, particularly after Screen emerges, there is a very sharp bifurcation. Screen in the UK, the journal. And I think we have somewhere in India kind of walk along down that trajectory. And this is something that I'm kind of interested in interrogating as to why. And what is this how we imagine the future of cinema studies? So this is one point that I want to put out before we get into a discussion of the film per se, because I understand that many of us here are academics, students, researchers, and of course Abhilash is a filmmaker. So this, I hope that there can be a two-way dialogue about this, where Abhilash also tells about, what he feels about this relationship between criticism and creative expression. Because in my experience, it's not a very, it's been a hostile relationship. Because I've been on the other side of the table also work. I mean, I also kind of do a little bit of creative work myself. So, so that's one question that I'm interested in. The second point that observation really, that I want to put out is that there are multiple ways of looking at this film, and in fact of looking at any film. And something that really struck me during the last conversation, which Shafiq was very eloquent and very articulate in his analysis of Birbal, and I unfortunately had to leave early in the last discussion, but I did watch the recording, the full recording subsequently. And something that was very interesting and which emerged in the director's response was a kind of constant reference to the film being accessible to the common audience. And his specific classification of common audience was the farmer and the auto rickshaw driver. And this is something that I'm really fascinated by, as to the creation of a audience type which is characterized by profession, and then that profession in some sense links to the ability or disability of having taste, right, or being able to follow a certain kind of narrative or nuance or story, which of course takes us right back into the heart of cultural studies and sort of Pierre Bourdieu's arguments around the relationship between class and taste and so on, in a very different context. But this, I think, is an assumption or a statement that really needs to be critiqued, because we, of course, know that it is a false assumption of a viewer. And I think this is where the bridge kind of needs, the gap needs to be bridged on both sides, where filmmakers perhaps need, benefit by interacting with researchers and people who've actually done ground level research in terms of how people engage with cinema. And one example, which of course is perhaps an anomaly, is the film reception in Kerala and the legendary Kerala International Film Festival, where we know that, and this again is the classic trope of the auto rickshaw driver who keeps getting referred to, that the auto rickshaw driver will go and watch a Kurosawa film in the Kerala Film Festival, right? So here then is a question that I want to put out about the assumed audience of Kannada films. And is there then a difference in the way in which the industry is constructing this assumption, not theorists or critics, but the industry is constructing this assumption from, let's say, a viewer in Tamil Nadu, or viewer of Tamil cinema, Telugu cinema, or Malayalam cinema, most definitely. And I think this again is a point that needs to be addressed, because if we look at the kind of cinema that is, and now I kind of talk about the 5 states with Telangana, but the 4 main film producing kind of regions in the south. And if one were to look at Kannada cinema within this larger landscape, how do we understand where it's going or what its concerns are? So I would then, my second kind of point, or what I would like to put on the table is to map Kannada cinema, because these 3 sessions are on contemporary or new directions in Kannada cinema, within a larger regional history, as well as, of course, the longer history of Kannada cinema itself, where we saw the the new cinema movement and take shape in a very specific way, which is well known. So I'm not going to rehearse that kind of historical trajectory. Now I'll actually get to my response to the film, which I really enjoyed watching. Thank you, Abhilash, for making it. It's a very, how can I say? It's a very simple film. The plot is very simple. The storyline is simple. Yet it's a film that kind of keeps you hooked. And there I think you've done a remarkable job, because it's very difficult, particularly given that our attention spans are now, really dwindling, to keep one hooked with absolutely minimal tension in the film. And this I found very remarkable about the film, that, Manikol used to talk about rhythm in cinema, right? Understanding the rhythm of cinema. And if one has to try and get a sense of what is the rhythm of this film, it's quite calm. And it's like, if I had to draw like a graph of this film, right, it would pretty much be a straight line with a little bit of quivering here and there. So I'm just trying to think of now, what is the action that happens in the film? Because you can't have film without action. I mean, otherwise, even what is McDougall, the very, very extreme ethnographic filmmaker, had action. Even when he just placed his camera in the Dune School and let it film whatever it want happen, right? So action in some sense is absolutely fundamental to the existence of cinema. So here, if one tries and looks at what is it that actually happens in the film, there are certain elements that enter into the space, and it's very much, and this again I think is why the film perhaps has done what it's done so successfully, because it's a difficult thing to do. Is that the space is very constant. It's just the same space, other than two outings. One is to the market to buy the vegetables and not buy the fish. And the other is to the astrologer. Other than that, there is no movement outside of that space. Everything happens contained within that space. And so in that sense, that kind of plausible world that the film creates is a very balanced, calm, and almost a naturally given, anthropological sense even, world. In that there is nothing other than the disappearance of the rooster, which is like the big event that happens in the film, right? A rooster disappears. And I think there again, it may perhaps in a very different way connects to what Shafiq was talking about vis-a-vis Birbal. And of course, then the difference is that this is not an urban narrative. And so that disappearance can be possible only in a certain way and not possible in another way. And I was kind of thinking to myself that this is such an interesting film, because let's say the rooster didn't disappear, then it could well have been an ethnographic film, right? In the sense that it is so much about the everyday daily life of the couple which is captured in a very, very nuanced way without much exchange of conversation. Just facial expressions, their behavior with each other, the space they give each other, yet the kind of affection that comes through. So it's something that is almost very natural in some sense, and anybody who's grown up or lived in a smaller town will understand that kind of relationship. Of course, that's not, smaller towns are full of really dramatic events and very, very complex relationships. I was myself born in North Karnataka, and I have grown up in Nipani, and I've grown up for the first 3 years of my life in a village which, now from what my mother tells me from her childhood stories, was far more dramatic than any city that I've ever lived in. And this drama was created by the proximity of neighbors, of people, of friendships. And what I found in Abhilash's film is that there are no neighbors or friends or crowds, or it's only when you go to the marketplace that you actually see the crowds, people going about buying things, shopping, walking on the streets. but it's almost an isolated kind of life, other than the three workers who come in, who are very central to this mystery of disappearance. So I was asking myself, I mean, that a kind of, a what if question, because this is slightly a who done it kind of film, but in a very rural context, and a very specifically local context. And of course, his film production company's name is Gubi Cinema. So I was immediately thinking that there is obviously homage there to Gubi Veeranna and theatre. I don't know. I'm guessing there is, because he also then subsequently set up a film production house in Bangalore, as we know, where he not only made Kannada films but also Tamil, one or a few Tamil films. So it is very, very, the film is very attentive to the local, to the region. I saw in the credits that there was somebody who had been brought in to train on the dialect. So it's very attentive to to representing things as closely as they are to the region, or that would be, or whatever. And so, of course, one would say that it's a realistic film, and this is something that I would really like for us to have a debate or discussion about, this word realism, and how does it actually, what does it actually imply across fiction, drama, of course, but I would also like to rope in documentary for our consideration at a later part. So I was thinking that, and this is an exercise that I sometimes give to my students, and I say that watch a film and change one character, or change one thing that happens in the film. And this, it's a course on narratives that I teach. And of course, when you do that, you realize that the narrative cannot continue in the way in which it originally existed, because the changing of one character or of one event makes certain things possible, others impossible, and therefore the narrative has to change. So I was thinking to myself, what if the rooster wasn't actually a rooster? Right? And of course, if you put a cow in the rooster's place, then the film is going to take a completely different trajectory. But what if the rooster wasn't stolen and the rooster was killed by another animal on the farm? What could be the possibilities then of this narrative? And the reason why I was asking myself these questions is because the film is so attentive to being realistic, that even in terms of sound, the usage of sound, there isn't any kind of sound that wouldn't belong to the landscape. The Yakshagana performance is there, of course, and they go for that. Yeah, that's the third outing. But there is nothing that doesn't belong to the landscape. And this again was a bit of a surprise for me, because when the grandson Sumanta comes to visit his grandparents, normally one would think that that is a great opportunity to introduce something that doesn't belong, that is out of place, right? So I'm thinking of, let's say, this is a kind of popular Bombay film, Rihai, which was made by Aruna Raje. And there is this character that is stuck in my mind for some reason, which is played by Nasiruddin Shah, who is the film is kind of located in Rajasthan, who has gone to Dubai and has come back from Dubai. So he's clearly kind of, foreign returned, and very much an outsider, or some kind of, novel character in that village. And he carries with him everywhere a transistor at that time. This is, sorry, the electricity has gone off in my house. So I'm just hoping that my laptop holds through for the rest of the discussion, and that you can see me a little bit. So anyway, so when the grandson comes, and of course he's not come from very far, he's been studying in Delhi, he's grown up in Bangalore, his parents are there, but there is nothing which is urban that he brings with him, in his demeanor, or in his possessions, or his thought process. So it is almost as if he belongs there and he never went away. right? There's only one scene where he looks into the glass of water when the grandmother asks him, is there anything in it? And when he is drinking the well water, right? That's kind of the only hint you have about perhaps his mannerisms have changed. And that again, I found very interesting because there's been so much of work on urban cinema, cinema in the city, the representation of the village and the city in the long history of Indian cinema, and the migrant from the village going to the city. And of course, we have a small body of films where the urban or city bred person comes into the village, right? There are many examples. I'm not going to get into that. So this was something which these things I found kind of very interesting and intriguing. And I would like to hear from Abhilash as to what is it that drove him to make these decisions. Clearly, I'm guessing that you are from that region. A lot of the film, it's a very independent film. You've probably taken help from friends, extended family. I was looking at the credit, right? So it's all in-house Shetty production.
Yeah.
Right? So that partially explains some things to me, but not entirely. And I was thinking of, sorry, I just lost my chain of thought here. Yeah, of course. So what is it, what is adding the drama? What is the relationship between the urban and the rural? It's a entirely, which is why I suppose that that site or the location is so well fenced off from the rest of the world that nothing can really get into it. And everything happens there. And that's very interesting kind of way of situating a story. The other what if question or speculation that I was thinking to myself was about the nature of the conversation that happens between the grandson and the grandparents, and between the grandparents themselves, and then between the three workers, men who come to work on the land. And what I found quite interesting, of course, I could relate to it because, as I said, for the first 3 years of my life, I lived in a small town, and I know in which my grandparents would talk to each other would be quite descriptive of things that they were doing. Like, I am going to chop wood, or I mean, they didn't go to chop wood, but you know what I'm saying, that I am now going to have my bath, and then I'm going to cook, and then repeatedly kind of describing actions that were happening, as opposed to thoughts or feelings or anxieties or questions. And I was thinking to myself, what if Godard had made a film like this? And of course, then the French elderly couple would be fully, talking about philosophy all the time, right? So what is the plausibility of conversation? What kind of conversation takes place in a location like this, in a film like this, that is believable? Because of course you have to keep the conversation believable. It can't be, you're not like, it's not a Ship of Theseus kind of film, right? So that is something that, again, I was wondering about, that as to why, if you are so close to that location, so close to the region, why is the dialogue or the conversation descriptive? Why is it superficial? Is it because you felt, I mean, I've started asking questions, but that those characters cannot engage with language in another way, right? Is it because of concerns of being true to the representation? Because certainly in Indian cinema, we don't have a problem with believing in what is very, very make-believe. I mean, we can believe in all kinds of characters that jump from one place to another. So a conversation, more conversation would certainly not have been unbelievable. And if that had been there, then what would it have been? Because then the kind of, graph of action and what happens and how the narrative becomes possible would have changed a lot, because a lot other than the rooster disappearing would have crowded the response of the viewer in some sense. So these were some kind of ideas, thoughts that I had, responses really to the film. And then just to kind of, end, because it would be really great, rich for me to listen to what other people have to say as well, so that we can actually have a discussion going, is to come back to this question of realism. And one more thing that I want to say, which I found, which I really liked about the film, is that it's in kind of contemporary critical theory, we would call it eco-criticism or even expanded cinema. These are not words that one needs to really worry about, but it's the relationship between human beings, animals, creatures, plants, right? So unlike in Birbal, where the detective figure must offer reason to solve the mystery, there is no offering of reason here. You go to the astrologer, you ask him what's going on, and then he says it's somebody you know, and so therefore, of course, and then you have to swear the truth by putting your hands on the coconut. So it's not reason, it's another kind of relationship to truth, or to understanding what went wrong, and finding out things. The reason for theft itself is something which is a belief, right? Something that has been told that rooster with 5 whatever it's called, claws, or what, is lucky. So it's not greed, it's a belief that this creature is going to be good for my life. And the old man anyways has a lot of roosters, so one going missing isn't going to make that much of a difference. And that is very interesting, of course. But so to come back to this thing of realism, so yeah, what I was trying to say is that the film is as sympathetic as the animals and the birds, the crows, and it opens with the sounds of all the birds and animals, and there is a kind of organic relationship with all the creatures that inhabit that space. That is the way of life, then that's very evident. And so of course you look after the rooster, you give it water because it's thirsty, but then it's okay, you chop its neck and you eat it, that's perfectly fine, right? So to come back to this question of realism, which I think we haven't pushed this query enough in our consideration of drama or fiction cinema, whereas in documentary cinema, filmmakers and theorists have really kind of taken on this concept of docu-fiction. And here is a film which is not very unsimilar to what one might call docu-fiction, but it's a drama. It's so documentary in the everydayness that it portrays. Yet, of course, it's fiction, and there I think there is something important happening in terms of what is it that we see as the knowledge emerging from cinema. That there is a certain kind of knowledge. We are learning something, not in a pedagogic or instructive manner, but we discover something about the world with every film that we watch. So even if it is very, very hardcore entertainment film, there is something, there's a cognitive neurological reaction that happens, and therefore even entertainment generates some kind of understanding for us. We make a distinction between, we seem to be making a distinction between the kind of knowledge generated by documentary and by fiction. And that I think is a distinction that has been introduced by film critics, film theorists. Because if in docu-fiction we accept that even documentary, of course, is constructed, but there can be fictional elements. It can still be documentary. Within drama, we don't seem to be looking at it in that way yet. And therefore, a docufiction, whatever docufiction gives to us, is taken more seriously, or as being more true in some sense, as opposed to a drama or a fiction film, which may actually be very documentary in the way in which it is gone about its process of constructing the images. So with just introducing that thought, that perhaps we can think about how it is that we think of the knowledge that cinema produces, or we articulate the knowledge that cinema produces, bringing together documentary and fiction. And I think this film is wonderful because, as I said in the beginning, that it is so ethnographic in its kind of treatment that it's very hard to say what exactly it is. But of course, it is a drama film. So I'm going to stop on that note and hand it over to Nikhila to steer the rest of the discussion. And it would be great if we can kind of, I know you have a history of having these conversations till 11, but I'm critically conscious of the book introduction that I need to finish by tomorrow. So if we can finish it by 10:30, that would be absolutely wonderful. So over to you, Nikhila. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rashmi, for initiating discussion on a number of issues coming from the film with your what if questions, and also giving us food for thought by talking about the place of the filmmaker in film studies itself. I think some of these questions are, keep coming back to us in discussion after discussion. And one of the things that we tried to do through TFO even earlier was to try and see if there is the possibility of a kind of a dialogue with filmmakers in order to see what it looks like from the other end. And so it's a learning process for us as well, because it's one thing to kind of comment on the cinema without without the kind of perspective that the filmmaker and the kind of stakes that the filmmaker may have in the making and the dissemination of the film. And it's quite another to have this dialogue and then probably talk about the film. So in that sense, we really, we're really grateful that filmmakers, some of them have agreed to be a part of our conversation. Harish, if you have a stable connection now, would you like to come in now?
Actually not yet, but still I think I can just speak. So I'm at the station now.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, till my Uber arrives, I think I can speak, but sorry for the disturbance over here. Like I watched this film in the Film Bazaar. So Film Bazaar is something which happens in parallel to IFFI Goa, the International Film Festival of India. So this happened in Jan or Feb earlier this year, where I got to watch KOLI TAAL. So there were some more Kannada films in that. But this was one very interesting film that I watched, and then after that, I think I connected to Abhilash, and this film probably went on to all the diaspora film festivals. So that kind of speaks about the importance of the story the film actually has to say. Like what Rashmi just said, and last session also we discussed about the reach. Like Srini was saying, so I was underlining and I was asking him pointed questions like, why do you have such kind of narratives and simplicity? And he was saying about the reach, right? Now, why can't a film like KOLI TAAL not be liked by the auto rickshaw drivers or the farmer. It's pretty much connected uh, to the roots of Karnataka over here, and to anybody who has kind of seen that kind of a lifestyle. So personally, for me, I used to visit my grandparents, and which happens to be in the same region as the film is. Uh, we also had a farmland and all. Of course, not of this chicken eating and all, but still, like when Rashmi says the place was little bit isolated, so that's how most of the houses in the Western Ghats or the Malnad regions are. Like if you are going for a family house or an old house over there, so this is how it is. Like we'll have one house deep in the farm, uh, and this is how the environment also will be. Like there'll be some servants who will be coming and helping us in the farming, and I pretty much could connect to all these things. uh, like even I used to visit where only my grandparents used to stay. um, See, one thing is this narrative is very simple. As said earlier, there are not much bigger conflicts over here. The only thing is there is this hen or the cock getting lost, and it needs to be found. And the I think that mainly starts after half an hour. So for the half an hour, the film takes on the establishment of the daily routine and the space. The space actually becomes more important over here. Like, so anybody who watches this film will be interested to know where actually the story is happening, even though it's not called out in any of the dialogues or but you will want to know where the narrative is happening. um, One another very important aspect which I would like to highlight over here is two aspects. One, of course, Rashmi mentioned, when you look at the end credits, you see a lot of people who are repeated, which gives us a hint that this is a film made by a very small crew. Even in the casting, if you see, there are only 6 major characters that you see. Right? It's a very tightly budgeted film, and I don't see any problem in recovery of this cost if this gets a theatrical release, because it's a film which is connected to most of us. We would like to see this story on the big screen, but the problem over here is, like, in Kannada cinema, is these films which are really good don't necessarily get a theatrical release. Maybe we can discuss on that later. The other point what I want to stress is, if you go through the end credits, you will never see anything with respect to the music or the background score. I don't know if you have observed it. So you can see that consciously, if you make an effort, there's no music at all in the film. It's everything done by the sound design. So the the landscape, which is about the farm and the uh, the nature of the region. So sounds are being taken from that. So this is something which is very fascinating. Like a first-time filmmaker who takes a decision of not using the background score, because background score plays a very much important role in toning uh, the highs and lows of the film or the performances. But Abhilash just you know got away with it. He just didn't want to use. He just wanted to bring out all the emotions through the ambient sound that the region has. I think it's very interesting for me, and probably even if you think about it, you will also feel it very interesting. Like there's no music at all in the whole film. Right? So yeah, these are some two top observations that I had. So maybe we can just ask other people to contribute. I'll touch back on the other facts and the questions that were raised by Rashmi in the later part.
Thanks, Harish. Once you get onto the car taxi, maybe you will be able to join back again. Anyone who would like to respond to the film now? Please unmute yourselves or raise your hand so I know that you want to speak. While people collect their thoughts, I had kind of written a very quick review of, yes, Tarakeshwar, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think the one point I just wanted to bring it to the discussion was about the chicken curry. I think it is not about who done it, about the rooster, but about the chicken curry. Uh, why the grandparents are worried about the rooster is because they're unable to feed the grandson. So I think the bond between the grandparents and the grandson is through the food. So the food is so essential. They think that only that will serve the or serve the bond. Uh, Even the fish curry will not do it. But finally, they had to settle down for fish curry. So that is the interesting point. I think unless the role the food plays, here the kolita, the chicken curry, I think in bonding in sealing the relationship and in molding the relationship in that region, um, actually, I think that should be brought into the discussion. That's one point I wanted to bring in at this point of time.
Okay. Yeah.
Can
yes,
I come?
Geeta. Yes, Geeta. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Rashmi, for your very for the several interesting points you raised in your introduction. And I think I would also go with you with regards to the tension or the lack of it in the film. And I thought that precisely because we come to any film for that matter with the assumption that something will happen in the course of the film. And because we bring to a film this assumption, this itself creates a kind of a tension. At least for me personally, they were so looking forward to the grandson. So I thought, oh God, is something going to happen? Is he not going to, reach the village at all? Then I saw him, just ambling along with his backpack, and I say, okay, this part of the tension is done. Then next what? So, the fact that nothing is happening is also giving rise to tension. So that I thought was a very interesting part of the film. And of course, the thematic of the film, this whole thing about the place of the irrational in the film, the astrologer, and the fact of rooster, bringing wealth and good luck because it has, six claws or whatever. So that I was one. I mean, I would like to ask Abhilash. I mean, where did that theme come from for him? And especially because in the recent past, we know about killings of rationalists like Dabolkar and Kalburgi. So that kind of it brought to my mind this theme, like what is it about this? I mean, why did the filmmaker think about this theme around which the film revolves? Is it because of some of the recent events that brought to focus this whole thing about rationality and considering the kind of irrational things that pass off as wisdom today, So did you feel that it was necessary to revisit this whole, traditional belief versus scientific temperament kind of a debate? And like Rashmi has already pointed out, the silence of the grandson on these issues, that also for me was something quite puzzling. Like he is, studying in a metropolitan city, and then he has come to visit. But even when his grandfather is, planning to visit an astrologer, there is absolutely no intervention or any attempt to, engage the grandfather in a conversation about the irrationality of it all. So why that silence? What does it mean to the film? So these are some of the things that came to my mind while watching.
Abhilash, would you like to respond now, or would you like to respond now? Yeah, go ahead.
I can respond. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, the first time, I mean, Rashmi said that the grandson is not bringing the urban, urban things to the village. The thing is like, I mean, most of the the students who are like in setting, I mean, the people from Udupi or Mangalore, we have high literacy rate. I mean, all are educated, but we are very much connected to our roots, and we believe in the customs and the cultural of the region, aspect of the region. And like, to be frank, we don't worship these statue, I mean god, I mean, we believe in the Aradhana and Bhutaradhana, like, even though we are like educated. So here the thing is, like Rashmi told, so he only in the beginning of the film, like he will just look into the water, like if it is fine or not. I mean, that's the only thing. And actually he is not worried about the rooster. I mean, the grandparents are, they're keep on struggling. I mean, they're searching out the rooster. He's less worried. He already gave up, I mean. So he's not, he's I mean, the main element is grandparents are like, I mean, the Abhilash Shetty, the character, he's searching for the rooster because of his pride and honor. I mean, not only for the the chicken, I mean the rooster, because when Vanaja character, she points out that we can't sacrifice other roosters because they're kept for the Diwali. I mean, kept for the other goddesses. So here the pride and honor matters a lot for Abhilash Shetty to find that rooster and make it a curry out of it. And the grandson, like it's all, I mean, every character in the film is based on the combination of the real people, all the people I have encountered in my life. So I didn't create any, I mean, the characters, I mean, sitting in a in a room. So I traveled and explored, like I keep on observing the people and I wrote it. So like there are a lot of Sumanta in in Shimoga and Bangalore and Udupi. And so that's what. And he also, like he don't question about the beliefs. I mean, according to the, I mean, regarding the coconut oath and all, he just asked, like, will I tell the truth or not? That's it. So we pretty much believe in everything which happens in in our side. So that's the main element. So the story comes from the place where I born and I brought up, and that's what I mean. The main element of the story, I mean, comes from the cultural aspect of the region we have. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of comments on the characters, because every character is based on the real character. I mean, the Vanaja character is completely based on my own grandmother, and the house is my real grandma's house. So it's all very, I mean, it's all based on everything. I didn't create this world. I mean, including that mobile, the hanging mobile phone, it was there actually. So I just, I shot it in a documentary style. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Abhilash, for your response. Anyone else would like to come in now?
I just want to add something.
Yes, Sridhar, please go ahead.
I just wrote personal comment to Geeta, but the grandson proposes that we'll report it to the police. And the missing of the rooster.
Yes.
And
yes.
also, after watching the Yakshaganam, while watching the Yakshaganam, he also says that dog barking at the actual person who has stolen the rooster. So he is representing rationality only there. He's not falling in the same line of his grandfather thinking. In that sense, it's okay. It incorporates.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. Shri.
Yeah, anyone else? Yes, Shaila, go ahead.
I really liked the film, first thing, and I was so happy to see such a film, in this forum. And while I was watching the film, constantly I was reminded of Iranian films, where like films like The Wind Will Carry Us, or any film which just takes one point and they expand and they go. It's like a water flowing. Films just flows very calmly, and it does not bring in a lot of things just to say I can do this, I can do that as a filmmaker. So it just follows one small incident, and I just felt like it just reminded me of Iranian films and the style Iranian films follows. So are you any way influenced by Iranian films, or it was just like you said, you just got it from your own story?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty much inspired by Abbas Kiarostami's and Majid Majidi films. So that's why, I mean, you know, so I watched a lot of Iranian New Wave films and also French New Wave films. And yeah, I'm pretty much inspired by, I mean, the style of filmmaking and the realistic approach by the filmmakers. Yeah, I'm inspired by the filmmakers. That's why, I mean, this film will be very realistic and original because they don't use a lot of like BGM, background music, and that's how I decided to not to use the background music so that can be a realistic. I mean, to give that realistic film. Yeah, like your your question was, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm pretty much inspired by Iranian filmmakers. I still watch a lot of Iranian films.
At some point, I just want to say something about that realism bit, but at a later point.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else who wants to say anything about the film now? Yeah, I was. I mean, I just had written a quick review of the film as soon as I watched it. I kind of felt quite compelled to write, and I very much enjoyed what I thought was a very light and airy touch in the film. And it's like one feels like a tourist being given a glimpse of a very charming cultural milieu. There are no real bad guys in the film. Not even the person who it turns out, is the thief or whatever. So, and there is no animosity. It's like, it's like a world in which there are no melodramatic emotions, so it's a very low key kind of setting. And I think what Abhilash says about where this is coming from, like Iranian cinema, I think that explains partly his decision to make a film like this. There's also wondering if there is something of a nostalgia of some kind of a world like this. I don't know if Kundapura and coastal Karnataka still remain like this. I'm not sure. So is this a kind of nostalgia for a world like this? I was just curious to know that. Abhilash, you can respond now, or we can take some more responses and then you can come in.
Yeah. Later I can respond.
Yeah, sure. Anyone else who wants to come in now?
Can we call this film or genre as participant objectivation instead of participant observation? Because entire this Shetty family production, whatever they make of about them, and our researchers, we make others as object. But here it's an interesting play of characters and also handling. So like I felt it's good experiment. And also this missing of roster is very common, many languages, many places. You have songs, ballads, many stories also. The people fight for it also. It's not that small issue. People kill each other also. So in that sense, from the beginning, I was sensing when that rooster will miss. So I was watching for that, waiting for that moment. So beforehand, I understood that it's going to be the rooster missing only. But it's handled well. I enjoyed. It's not. It is a new, not that old story repeated like that. But it's.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Abhishek, yes. Abhishek first and then Tarakeshwar. Abhishek, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So it seemed to me like the filmmaker's version of some bucolic paradise, which was being threatened by modernity, but he's trying his best to keep it at bay, with the phone hanging and all telephonic conversations happening outside the gate. And there's this scene where there's this reflection of the aeroplane in the water in the stone pitcher. So it seems to me like some sort of a fantasy, and as you said, a nostalgia of some sort. Yeah, so that is all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Abhishek. Tarakeshwar, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in on this, the question of nostalgia. I think after watching the film and we had discussion with Abhishek, I think we did discuss this. As Harish Mallya was also trying to say, people who have left this Malnad region, they fondly will look at this film. So there is a market, there is the overseas market, there is NRI market for this. But then, yes, that is in terms of the market. But I think the nostalgia of this film is not the nostalgia that we witness in the new wave cinema of the 70s, where the upper caste left the village, and especially from Kerala, I could see that this Tarwad getting dilapidated, and then the changes that are happening there. Even in coastal Karnataka, there is some kind of nostalgia that about the land reforms, and they lost the land and things like that. But this is not that kind of nostalgia, where they've lost some kind of prestige that they were enjoying, and now bemoaning it. There is no bemoaning of it. That's what is important here, I think, in this film. And linking it up with what Geeta asked about the rationality, and the answer given by the Abhilash is quite interesting. It is not reason versus rational. It is not local versus global. It is not rooted versus movement. They both go together. So this fellow, he has his own way of looking at the world, but when he goes into that world, he accommodates himself into that world, and they also do it. So in that sense, without any contradictions, without any what should I say, a confrontation, they sit together. That's what is quite interesting here. There's no nostalgia, there's no bemoaning, there's no tradition versus modernity kind of thing. Both do exist. That is what makes this film somewhat different from other films which hang on nostalgia. We try to construct it as a kind of or romanticize it. Neither it is bemoaning the changes that are happening in the village, nor in the nostalgic way, nor it is trying to romanticize it and then again say we are losing it. Nothing of that sort. In order to use a Kannada word, ತಣ್ಣಗಿನ ಶೈಲಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಥೆ ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಈ ಮಾಸ್ತಿ ತರ ಕಥೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. So, and the story itself is not something new. In a lot of short stories in Kannada, we find this. An animal missing, especially the sacrifice animal missing. So, or it is running away, and the kind of commotion it creates there. So, it has a place in that, and when it gets missed, what happens to it? That is important. But the highlight of this is what impact it has on the relationship. The grandson is saying it doesn't have any impact. I am fine with anything else. If it is not KOLI TAAL, even fish curry is okay. Even if it is not fish curry, something else is also okay for him. For him, visiting the grandparents is important. But for the grandparents, preparing that fish curry because he is coming is important. The entire film starts with is the news of his arrival and then the preparation for the KOLI TAAL. And it goes missing, and then in that sense, the food as a bond, that's the perspective of the grandparents. I can relate it to even some of even my mother and my grandparents. Whenever somebody visits, they do prepare certain things which they think the people who are visiting like it. So it is important for them. When my sisters visit my mother, she thinks that she has to prepare masala for them, powder for them, because they can't do it. Either they have to buy it, only my mother can prepare it, and my mother is happy about it. When they are visiting, she has to do it. So in that sense, that food as a kind of bond within the family to maintain the relationship, and a chain getting missed, and what it creates anxiety, the anxiety that it creates in them. I think that is very important. In that sense, it is not a kind of nostalgia of celebrating either the village simplicity or bemoaning the kind of changes that are happening there. Yes, it is nostalgic, but it's a different kind of nostalgia. I think we need to look at this kind of nostalgia where there's no confrontation, there's no bemoaning, there's no romanticizing it. Both can sit together. As you were saying, they a software engineer going to Daiva and then agreeing to what the Daiva says. In fact, these Daivas, if there is a dispute either within the family or within the village, whatever the Daiva, the person who is taking on the spirit says, that is accepted for both the parties. There's no question of it, not accepting it. So there's no court, there's no police. Daiva will solve even the legal issues there. So in that sense, both sitting together without any confrontation is something that is quite interesting. That tells a lot about the kind of things that are happening again in the coastal area. And to understand it, I'll stop here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tarakeshwar, for that extended discussion. Abhilash, would you like to respond now, or do we take some more responses?
Yeah, we can take some more responses and later I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else who would like to respond now? Sanjay, Rajan, anyone? Arpana has also joined us. Arpana, Matatira. Ajanta?
Nikhila, due to the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
heavy rains, you know, I've not been, it's raining here continuously and we've not been able to watch the film. So the connectivity is very low. But yeah, so that's really been my problem. But I'm just so happy to be part of this discussion and meet these very interesting new directors. And, you know, completely making a random comment, just listening to what everybody's saying, you know. Because we began with, is it an ethnographic document or not? And is ethnography ideologically neutral? And of course, it's not. You know, Nikhila, it was reminded, the discussion just reminded me of Clifford Geertz, yeah? And the Balinese cockfight. And from the story of a rooster, you basically tell the story of 500 years of, you know, that regional culture. And probably that's what Tarkeshwar was gesturing to. So I look forward to seeing the film, and apologies, I haven't been able to so far.
Yeah, keep safe, Ajanta. Ajanta is based out of Vellore, and we all know what is happening in Tamil Nadu. So keep safe, Ajanta. And next week we hope to hear you talk about the two films. Anyone else who is ready to respond now? Sanjay? Rajan?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
the question of nostalgia, I think, is built in very, very strongly because, as far as I remember, all that area down that coastal highway has changed so much, it's totally unrecognizable, right? Especially from Mangalore to Surathkal and beyond that, you find all that has changed so much, right? But at the same time, you also get this whole idea of having chicken curry, right, is part of the culture, and that's kind of showing respect, right? So that's what is very cultural over there. So I think that's important, and the connectivity is something that's real, actually real in a lot of parts of uh, rural India, right? Where you have to sometimes walk for some miles away from the house to get a network, right? So I actually remember doing this about 2 years ago in Chikmagalur, right? I had to go far away to get connectivity to talk to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else? Sanjay, would you like to respond? Okay. Usha has just joined in. Yeah. Okay, Abhilash, if you want to come in. Okay, Rajan, you've unmuted.
I have a question to ask. Is
Okay.
this the question of this astrologer and the swearing on the coconut, all those kind of things happen, right? And one of the people who swears on the coconut is found, all those kind of things. Yeah, so is it anti superstitious or anti astrology in any way, right? That's a question I had.
Okay, Abhilash, maybe you can respond now if anyone else
No, I
has
didn't
anything
get
to
the
say.
question, like astrology. I mean,
The person who is found having the rooster, he has already sworn on the coconut and all that kind of thing, right?
yeah.
So is it against astrology, and is very silently trying to get in this whole idea of rationality and astrology and making fun of astrology, right?
It's like he just wanted to, I mean, escape from that. So even he believes in in everything. I mean, astrology and superstitious, whatever it is, he believes in everything. So still they take oath just to, just to escape from that, that loop. I mean, loop of the I mean the stealing thing, so that he can blame on the another worker. So, and actually, who is I mean the guy who is innocent, he don't take he don't take oath on coconut because he had some issues in the past. So clearly, I didn't think about the anti-astrology and everything. You just characters in the quirky characters are behaving for the situation, like So I think that's it.
Okay. Is that all? Harish, are you in a position to come back into the discussion? Do you have anything else to add? And I remember Rashmi also saying that she has something to add as well. Rashmi, would you like to come back now?
Yeah, just by way of my concluding comments, at least, it's been a very interesting discussion listening to various opinions. And I particularly kind of like, what I like about the film is that it is a world unto itself. So I think what some of the points that emerged through our conversations, through the discussions, was about the frameworks that we apply to understand different spaces, right? So are we looking from an urban perspective and trying to make meaning of another place through our own framework, vis-a-vis the demands for modernity, rationality, etc., whatever? Or does the film actually allow us to say that it has its own frameworks and we must understand that location through those frameworks? Now, it's a very difficult question, and it's a kind of, almost impossible to deal with question, because in my view, when your viewers are going to watch the film, they may either recognize themselves in it or they find something that is similar, familiar. So that recognition is a very different kind of recognition of what I was trying to earlier say in terms of what is the knowledge that cinema generates. It's that I know this grandmother was like mine, and she used to cook and just the way in which my grandmother did. That's a knowledge that comes out of familiarity in some sense, right? But there is always also a different, and this is where your film is interesting, is because it is kind of almost touching upon being ethnographic in some way, as you yourself admit. There is also going to be a knowledge that will be produced through a recognition of difference. That, oh, okay, like, in an anthropological, but of course ethnography is a much better version of anthropology, but that, is this how what they do? Is this, do they take an oath to a coconut? So, so let's say a Japanese viewer is watching your film. Right. Now the response, and again, this is a complicated thing to navigate, because your film is doing the round of international festivals. So you're going to have viewers from all parts of the world. And the knowledge then produced is going to be of very different kinds. One is going to be, I know this place, I recognize it, it's mine. And the other is going to be a very ethnographic, anthropological, which, because of the realistic techniques that you use, is going to pass off as another kind of, okay, that's how they live there, that's what they do. They don't have network, they they make wonderful chicken curry. So different kinds of things are going to get deduced, and that's kind of, I think my key point of interest in the film emerged from the whole idea of realism, because there are two very different responses to realism. One is that filmmakers say, I don't want to make a realistic film because I want it to be successful. I want the audiences to like it, right? So I will make the masala film. And the other is that filmmakers say, I want it to be realistic so that audiences will appreciate it. So there's a very divided house on this question of realism. And realism itself, I think, in cinema, and there is like 100 years of writing on this now. But in your film, there is the scene where the three of them, Hala and Manja, and I'm forgetting that, are sitting and talking, and basically the theft has happened or is going to happen then. When he says, I have to go and visit my deity and I have to leave early. And the camera then pans right up to the trees and stays there, tall trees, coconut trees or whatever trees, and just stays there. So when we talk of this question of realism in cinema, clearly the techniques you're using are of a different, I mean, you're not, how, like we don't have the time, or this is not perhaps the space to talk of cinematic realism and its different forms, etc. But realism, and this is kind of, I teach a course on narratives in which I teach actually start with the novel and end with the video game, narratives across these different forms. And realism actually is kind of historically specific vis-a-vis literature and the novel in some sense, and then enters cinema in a very different way. So it has a different historical trajectory within the visual arts, so I, in literature, at least in the way in which I understand it, it basically says that we are rejecting now the epics of the earlier time, the heroic figures, and we want realistic people, because every individual's experience of the world is different. Even if they're in the same family, even if they're from the same culture. And therefore, the novel, the genre of the novel has to be novel, because it is an individual's representation. And therefore realism becomes, the obvious form, or the form that is most suitable for this. But when this film, for example, is not an individualistic film, and so when we bring the term realism into cinema, it kind of departs from its history within literature. So this is, of course, going to a completely different terrain, but I think this is something that film theorists definitely, could have conversations around. I mean, I would certainly be interested in hearing from others of what they think about this. So I just want to thank everybody for, their responses, because I've learned from them, and Abhilash for making this film, and I hope you go on to make many more films which are also about different cultures.
Yeah, sure. Actually, KOLI TAAL is my warm-up film, so I have better stories to tell. So yeah.
Okay, Sridhar has unmuted himself. Sridhar, go ahead.
Okay, so see, first when I watched the film, I thought that what is that great in this film? It's actually one experience. But after listening to Abhilash, he selected that no BGM. Then I understood what is the difference that film is making. So, and regarding the R-cube, I say, whether it is reminiscence or nostalgia, or realism or rationality. See, these things you are bringing again and again, but actually when you watch the film as a viewer, I'm saying that they have engaged with it critically. Without dragging much scenes and all hangama, they have, the filmmaker has resolved all those things. It has everything in it. See, when coconut scene is there also, the grandson poses not in a the debating way, but why are you doing this? But without buying a conflict, he joins with him. So second is that rationality and also this food romanticism. There is no nostalgia. There is a theme in the film. See, when they miss that rooster, both grandparents and grandson have a disappointment. The grandparents had the feeling that we could not feed him. And grandson also, while eating fish or other alternative, he doesn't show interest. So all that conflict is there. And even when go to the actual, whoever clicked that rooster, you do not have all fightings and everything, but there is a controversy, what is it called? Conflict. He goes and picks his rooster and then comes back. But there they don't buy any problem because he gives an explanation. Whatever he believes, why all those stories, subplots maybe. Even that man who tries to bluff the fact that others he wanted to point, the third person, who is actually stealer, who is suffering from this indigestion. So many things, it is within a small narration, it is beautifully brought. So a discussion, I don't think it's following the movie, film. Film has all those things, very well fit. So it has all those things. We don't know, we are not knowing about food culture and all those things. That food nostalgia is beautifully explained here. That's what I said, Shetty production, and it's a participant objectivation. So like that, after that, I'm thinking it's a good one. It's a brilliant one, not that without without much technology, hi-fi and all those things, we got used to it. So all those things, though representative, but it is not that it happens as a routine.
Yeah.
So in that way, beautifully done. So I don't think whatever we are making as issues, they are not issues at all. They are well tackled in the film. I like that in that sense. Now I am liking more.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Nikhila, can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I'm going to watch it first thing when the connectivity comes back on. But I wanted to add to what Professor Sridhar says as well. The idea of realism, right, is so historically sort of specific. Yeah. So, I was thinking of people like Dipesh Chakraborty, right? They say precisely it's that coexistence of gods and rationality, which for Ronajit Guha is what distinguishes the history of India from the history of Europe. That for us, the gods in that sense have not died, right? They coexist with the grandson who probably goes to America. The idea of the, citizenship, right? Sunita Kaviraj talking about the imaginary institution of India. The individual rights-bearing citizen is not the emblematic figure, even of the Indian Constitution. So, I have not seen this film, but it seems so beautiful. And of course, the reference to Iranian cinema and that he loves. So, and listening to Professor Sridhar and all of you, exactly, it's from that little vignette. Probably we're getting an insight into a very, very densely textured historical moment of Karnataka. I don't know, but I hope to see this, and I'm just waiting for the rains to stop. So thank you very much, Mr. Abhilash, for joining us.
I'm glad.
Yeah, anyone else? Okay, Abhilash, any final comments to make about the film, or you want to respond to anything that has been said in the discussion?
I'm glad people are liking it. It's a story straight from the heart, and I was more confident when I never saw the film set, and I was less confident when I watched the film set. I went to the big production house. They were shooting an ad shoot, and there were a lot of gimbals and cranes, a lot of big cameras. So for that moment, I thought maybe I can't make a film. We need these the equipment and all to make this film, and we need crores of budget and all. So then I started, exploring the word cinema and the, like how to make with a minimalistic characters and, the people. So is that have happened? I'm very happy and I'm glad I made it. So yeah, so it's still it's I consider KOLI TAAL as a warm up film for me because I have better stories to tell. So day by day, we all upgrade and we learn a lot. So it's been 2 years. I was 26 when I was directing KOLI TAAL. Now I'm 28. So maturity comes to our mind, and yeah, I finished my the script. So hopefully we'll start reproduction soon, early next year. So yeah, keep supporting. You're doing a wonderful job talking films online by supporting the independent films and all. So it's good. It's a good thing to discuss on the film because when we make independent film, it's very difficult to market. And it just comes and vanishes. So that's why a lot of Kannada films are not available to watch. And I was talking with Girish Kasarwadi the other day. He was telling the same thing. So we have good. Back in 1990s, 1980. The film critics, they were writing a book on a film. And filmmakers were accepting it. Whether it is whatever they write, they accept it. So nowadays, filmmakers, they don't. I don't know, the relationship between filmmakers and film critic. I think, I don't know. It's hard, I think, as of now. But when I write my stories, I never think of audience. I never think of film critics or whatever. So because this is my story, I just want to tell my story. And when it comes to, people are telling, KOLI TAAL is very realistic film and all. So I use some techniques for this film. First thing is, this film is not beautiful for me. I don't know what other people think. When it comes to Western Ghats, Sagra, people think of a very beautiful, place. A lot of, so for me, it's not beautiful. I just wanted to shoot in a way that in my vision. So that's why I didn't keep a lot of wide landscape shots and all. So I see my place like that, not in a beautiful eyes. So that's why the film came very beautiful. Realistic, and the using of the aspect ratio matters a lot because most of the Indian films are shooting in scope. Even though actors are they are putting their everything to make the character look real, the scope matters a lot. It gives a cinematic feel, not the realistic feel. So that's why I decided with the flat, which is 1.8 8 by 8 1.85 is to 1, which is the flat. And so everything matters. From the shooting to the sounds and also editing, transition, everything matters to make the film real. So yeah, that's it.
Sorry, Nikhila. I think now I have a
Harish, yes.
tab which, yeah. So, yeah, I think,
Yes, Harish. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So people, try to find realism, but this film is very close to what reality is. Like with the space that is being shot, with the characters that come in the film, and even the story that is being told. Right? It's a simple story that can happen on any day. It doesn't have a major issue. What is surprising for me is, like, in the film festival, it is a very norm to find films that talk about issues. But this film is very straightforward and people are liking it. That is something, which is very positive. Like people always say, like in last week discussion, we talked about reach and all. So this film, again, if you see, it can be reached anywhere, like anybody in any part of the world gets connected to the story. So it's kind of speaks about the universal narrative. But what unique thing the film provides is about the native culture, right? So somebody asked if a person in Japan, if he watches what happens, like I do believe that they'll try to figure out what is that being happening. At least when we see a film from other region and we see something which is very interesting, we try to put an effort to see what it is, what does that mean in their context, right? So I think that kind of exercise will be done by people over there, and that is what cinema should do. So whenever I watch a cinema from some part of the world, it should tell me about that world. It should just not tell a story, but it should tell more other things also, which I think this film does a very good job. And that's why I think it's being screened in several film festivals, though it doesn't talk about any hard issues. Like it's a very style that films, if they show India in trouble, or the people over here are finding a lot of difficulties, so those kind of issues, if the film is showing, then it's very likely to be picked up by the festivals. But no, this is a different story altogether. And other thing, like what Abhilash also said, and Rashmi asked about the cinema aspects about the Kannada cinema, right? The audience and all. Like I believe you also know that if you go to 80s or early 90s, we used to get films like this, which were more on the storyline and the characters. But I think late 90s and 2000, there was a total shift towards films which were only based on the stars and all. And there's a difference, like what we heard from the director who spoke last week and the director who spoke this week. Last week he said he wants films to be made for the audience, but this week we hear that I want to make my film. I don't want to make a film for the audience. I'll make my film, but it will reach the audience. Like I believe the film finds its audience. You don't need to make a film for the audience. You don't need to make a film like for a particular sector and all. It will be liked. So if you have particular story which is very interesting, no matter what social strata you belong to, they end up watching it. Now the films are easily accessible through various digital means, but the only thing is you need to find a platform where your film will be reached. So that still is a problem for some of the Kannada films, mainly the independent films, which don't have a recognizable face attached to it. So this is something which I have been working on from past several years. When OTT came into picture, I was very happy that we all get a space to put our films on. But unfortunately, what happened is during the pandemic, things changed. So all these films which didn't get a theatrical release were pushed onto OTTs, and all these OTTs also wanted to have some names at their side to increase the subscriber base. And that's how most of the star films ended up again putting on to the OTT, and the independent films losing space for that. So this is a battle which will go on now. Hope a lot of independent good films come in, so that we can create a bunch of good films and talk to the OTT guys, like give us also a space, because they don't need to invest much in acquiring these films. The cost will not be much higher, so they can easily put some 5 or 6 films and then they can release it on OTT. So this is something which even I am trying to do from my personal contacts and all. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, this is something which I wanted to share on the release front of such films.
Okay, thanks so much for telling us, for giving us all these details about, the trajectory that, and also the challenges that films like Abhilash.
I will, yeah, I like to mention one film over here. So there was one film by name Sony, I believe, which is on Netflix. So it premiered in Venice, and Netflix actually acquired it because it premiered in a film festival. So again, Milestone got premiered in Venice, the same festival, but Netflix didn't buy it. So the time gap was only 1.5 years. So the director asked what changed. The only thing they came back is like, pandemic has happened, and we want to cash on the audience base now. We want more subscribers. So a known film or a known face will get more subscribers, because for them also it's an opportunity to get people on board, right? So we are seeing that shift now. Hopefully now theaters are open, so that trend will diminish and we'll again get some good films on the OTT. So that's the hope which I am looking for. So let's see.
Yeah, thanks, Harish, for all those illuminating comments on the changes that are happening in the OTT universe. And Abhilash, from Talking Films Online, we wish the very best for your film that we hope will see a theatrical or OTT release as soon as possible. We also hope that we will get the opportunity to discuss more such films of yours whenever you make them. Thanks, Rashmi. It was very interesting, the comments, the opening comments and the issues that you laid out for the discussion. And thank you so much for joining in. The last time you joined in, and it really means a lot that, people are finding this forum interesting and worthwhile, to discuss cinema. Thanks, Harish, very much again for joining the discussion today, in spite of all the difficulties that you were facing with your travel. We hope to see you again.
No issues at all.
Yeah. Hope to see you again next week as well. Next week, we are discussing two of Prithvi Konanur's films. The two films are Alegalu and I think Drama Action Cut. Ajanta Sarkar here will be initiating the discussion next week. So I hope all of you will be able to join in the discussion next week as well. I will be sharing the links to the film, and hope to see you all next week. Have a very good week and good night.
Thank you. It's a wonderful
Thank you,
forum.
Abhilash. Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and good night.